Good evening. My name is Steve, and I'm not Canadian. I just like to take the piss out of their silly accent. I've been here for 10 years, and so you probably can't tell, but I am American. So tonight I'm going to talk about a couple things, right? One is what brought me to New Zealand, what attracted me as a Yank, and secondly, to talk about this whole future state in terms of as entrepreneurial people standing out there in the future and helping your potential customers understand this exponential change and why it's important for them to see it. But first, why New Zealand? I shortlisted to 4 countries, came down to 2, Australia and New Zealand. And I'm a Californian, I like the sunshine. But my wife said, Steve, you have 2 boys. And I said, yeah. Would you want them to become Australian men? So I said, New Zealand it is. I lived in Japan for 3 years, and that's where Edward Deming was the ambassador of productivity, quality management guru. And he was with Toyota. So I came to Alpine Electronics, and I was going to be the ambassador of love. So my Japanese was going pretty well, and there's some lady at the bar, and I went up and talked to her with my Japanese, and she looked at me, and in perfect English, she said, "Are you retarded?" So I thought, well, I need to do something different, so I went out and did my OE, and I spent 3 years of a non-working OE and met wonderful Kiwis and their values, and I thought, this is a pretty special place. And I also learned about British women and all those things they say, and I thought, this is true, but this is what happened when I hooked up. So there I was 9 months later in Africa with my lady, and I loved her conversation on the phone with her mom. Look, I met this guy, and he's got an earring and a patch. He hasn't had a job for 3 years, and best of all, he's American. That didn't go down well at all. Back in America, I had to make a choice. Do I stick with George W. and he can protect my family from the weapons of mass destruction, or do I go see Auntie Helen in New Zealand? It was a pretty simple choice with the values of New Zealand and all the talk about the quality of life in New Zealand and all the statistics. I thought to myself, I'll come out here. I came out here for 2 weeks, searched for a role, and Bill Gates and company came to the rescue. And I worked in a wonderful atmosphere at Wellington, Microsoft. And I showed my kids this picture today. I said, look, these are the 2 wealthiest men in the world. And it's not all about wealth, it's about experience. And my kids look at me and like, whatever. Barack Obama, he's made some changes. And he's talked about the digital asset and infrastructure in America being an asset. So he's brought in a czar of security. He went to Microsoft and got their chief security guy. And now Microsoft and security, I'm like, dude, things have changed in America. Now, my strategy for consulting gigs, we work with different organizations, but if you've got a round logo, we're doing business with you. Otherwise, fuck off. That shit costs a lot of money, by the way. So what we're talking about with organizations is around exponential change. In 1999, imagine people were still writing letters. They were still reading newspapers. There was no Google. If you asked Henry Ford, if he asked what people wanted, they would have said a faster horse. But today, people are so connected, so much online, that they're talking about flying cars and infrastructure from around the world with whole kinds of crazy ideas. IBM for the last 3 years, they've done a whole bunch of research. And the #1 challenge for CEOs and leaders and businesses and governments is exponential change. They cannot deal with the speed of change. And so Harvard Business Review also talked about too busy, lack of time. You know, these chief executives, these organizations are stuck in their dominant logic. And entrepreneurial people like you need to help and let them see the future and then bring them back and say, this is the pathway. Look, this is a classic example, Apple. In the year 2003, their market cap was $1 billion. 4 years later, it was $150 billion. And if you look at the comparison on that iPod became ubiquitous, look what the App Store has done to that very same graph. It's just totally smashed it. So what I'm saying is when you're talking to customers, you need to show them around exponential change. You need to tell them this is going to impact their business model. Look at this hockey curve right now for the iPhone, dwarfs, iPod. The Hoff, we always got to have the Hoff. I was trying to be multicultural, and I thought there might be a few Germans here tonight because this dude's a national icon. So the Germans right now, of course, they're not laughing because it's ironic. So, but anyway, I came to New Zealand for quality of life, and in 3 days, about 3 weeks ago, I realized quality of death is cool here too. It's #3. So living and dying in New Zealand, it's all good. Thank you.